Hi guys, welcome back to Joe's RC Corner. I want to thank you all for joining me again on this new build. As you know, we're finished with the Giles 202 build, but we wanted to get started on this one and get this aircraft ready to fly as well. So stay tuned and we'll start moving with the process here. Okay, so welcome back, and so basically what we've gotten started on the Cap 232 is I went ahead and started pulling off the covering. As you can see, there's some discoloration in the balsa wood on the rear turtle deck, and most of that's from when I was pulling it off. I did not get it hot enough, and it peeled off and left some of the blue. So when I used the acetone to remove some of it, it just spread the blue all over. Luckily, this top section is going to be blue anyway, so you should not see that in the finished product. Now, the rest of it, we're going to be working on the wing, and I made some templates of the pattern that's already on the aircraft, so because that's the same pattern I want to use on this aircraft again. However, I'm going to use a metallic blue, red, and white. So the aircraft is going to be the red, white, and blue, but in the same pattern as Matt Chapman's colors. I hope you guys enjoy it. The next, after this, we're going to go ahead and start peeling the covering off the wing, and I'll show you how I did it using my heat gun and just peeling it off as it heats up. So stay tuned, guys, and we'll start working on that, okay? All right, guys, so now that we've laid out the table here, what I'm going to demonstrate is how I'm pulling off the covering on these parts of the aircraft. So I've already went back and I made up all my templates of the design because we're going to be using a similar design on the aircraft when we do this. So when we recover this aircraft. So I'm going to take one of the elevators here and we're going to slowly work on pulling off the covering on here. And what I have found is the easiest way to get this covering to come off is actually to use your heat gun. You heat it up just enough to where you can start peeling it off by basically making the glue underneath sticky again. So we're gonna go ahead and do that here. So I'll turn off the sound so you won't have to listen to this. All right, so there you go. That peeled off nicely. I did have a little bit stick there, and we can wipe that off with a little bit of acetone, not a big deal. But one of the things that I want to go over while this is all peeled off here is I will be using the Robart pinned hinges, the point hinges. So everywhere the hinge is going to be, I'm going to add a little bit of balsa wood back here, so that way when I epoxy those in, they'll have a little bit more meat to glue to. But we'll get to that once we get to the portion of rebuilding it. Now, looking at this structure, it's pretty interesting. There's a lot of holes and gaps and stuff in here. They didn't sand it very well. For instance, right up here, you can see that the piece of wood for the counterbalance didn't actually touch the trailing edge, and they filled it with what looks to be glue and sawdust to try to make that fit. And The other thing they did is it's actually an extra piece of sheeting on top of that. Interesting. Very interesting. But other than that, all the glue joints look to be really good, but I will be going back over it with some CA, thin CA, and I'm going to drip some thin CA into all of these joints just to make sure they're good and strong. So we're going to go ahead and continue on peeling off the covering, and I will be right back once I have the horizontal and elevators completely with covering pulled off. I'll also work on peeling off all the covering on the wing too, and we'll be right back. Okay, guys, so we got all the covering removed from all the parts of the aircraft. So the next steps are basically going to be doing some sanding and cleaning up some of the structure, because it doesn't look like they sanded much when they before they covered this aircraft. So we're going to go through all of it, sand it, touch up all the glue joints, and get it all cleaned up and ready to cover again. We'll glue the wing halves together, fiberglass them, do everything we need to do to get it mounted onto the fuselage prior to covering. Same with the tail. Make sure everything is straight, everything is lined up, so that way when we cover it, it'll all line up nicely and we can just glue it in after. So, but looking at the structure, they didn't do when they were cutting the sheeting, they left these very rough. So I'm going to go ahead and sand all of that down. We'll get it all cleaned up. And once we get this sanded and cleaned up, we'll spray it with some water-based polyurethane, so that way when I glue the next set of covering back onto the airframe, it'll glue a little bit nicer. We're going to make sure all these glue joints are nice and tight so that nothing is going to fall apart while we're flying the airplane. But all in all, the structure is in great shape. It's very strong. Should not have any issues with getting it together. Like I said, everything is cleared off, and basically we have an almost ready to cover airplane. So stay tuned, guys, and we'll be back when we start getting some more work done on it. So all right, guys, so welcome back. And I did a little bit of work off camera just to get things moving here, but I want to just do a quick overview and get caught up of where we are right now. So in the last portion of this video, you saw that I was pulling the covering off the one of the stabs, and at this point we got all the covering off the aircraft. It came off pretty well. I did find some interesting construction techniques that Horizon used, but and I don't remember this on my old one, but then again, this was over about 20 years ago, so it's been some time. But all in all, the structure is sound, it's strong, and not going to have any issues with the airplane while it's flying down the road. But we are doing some differences, some changes to it to make it a little bit more robust for a long period. So when they cut out the holes for the servo box here, I noticed that it was very rough and very ugly. So I went ahead and I did some repairs to that. I got that cleaned up so we could fit the servo in there nicely. It's not a perfect rectangle, unfortunately. They really cut that out in a weird format. But some things that were kind of interested, the ailerons are actually solid. They're two pieces laminated together, and then it's solid balsa all the way through, which is nice. The trailing edge is also very beefy, so I'm using if I can find one around here. I can't find one right now, but here we go. I'm using these Robart point hinges rather than the paper hinges that it comes with. I'm not really a fan of using CA hinges on a plane this size, so we went ahead and I'm replacing them all with these. So on the tail feathers, I am going to need to add a little bit more wood to support the point hinge. But as you can see, this wing, the wing, since this part is solid, there's plenty of meat there for this to grab into here. And same with the trailing edge of the wing where the aileron attaches. Now, I also mocked up the control horn and linkage here on the left wing panel. So I wanted to get an idea of what length I need and where I need to put the holes, because I want to put all the holes in where they need to be prior to covering, because then I just have to pop the holes out with the soldering iron and go ahead and piece it together, and we're ready to go. So the servo fits nicely, and as we've noted before, I'm using those Corona DS 55.9 HVs. They're high voltage servos, so I can run the lithium ion battery packs directly to them. They're pretty decent servos for $13. You can get them at Aloft Hobbies. I'll put the link in the description. And then the control horns we're going to be using, instead of the Sullivan equipment that it came with, we're actually replacing it with the Dubro horns, similar to what we did on the Giles 202. I like these. They're very strong. It goes all the way through the aileron, and you can see the bolt comes through on that side. So everything looks really good there. So we're going to go ahead and turn the camera around, and I'm going to show you what the fuselage looks like right now, so you have get caught up on where we are. But everything looks really good on it, so stay tuned. Let me turn the camera around for you guys. All right, guys, so as you can see, the fuselage right here is pretty much ready to start installing the servo rails up in the front here, figuring out how the fuel tank and the engine mount and everything is going to go on here. I am going to beef up the engine, the firewall a little bit on this airplane, because I am running a gas engine. It's a twin cylinder, so it's a little less vibration. However, I do still want to beef that up just a little bit so I don't crush the thin plywood that they have up there for the firewall. I have mocked up the elevators, and like I said, I'm going to add some extra meat behind the point hinge here, so it has a little bit more where these are mounted in, similar to this one here. I've also increased, I'm going to be using a bolt through, a threaded rod that goes all the way through the rudder here for the pull-pull system on the rudder. So I went ahead and added some hardwood in here and then fiberglass that in place. And I did the same thing on the elevators because they wanted you to use this really thin piece here, and if I put a bolt through that, that would have just been really bad. So I didn't want that happening. So I went ahead and fixed that part and added a little extra meat in there for that portion of it as well. The servos are all going to be up in the front on this. I do normally prefer to have the servos further back in the tail, but I don't want this to end up being any tail heavy, so I'm going to put the servos where they recommend to put them in, which is up here in the front, and then run the 440 steel rods all the way through and to the elevator. Now I am running 2 elevator servos and 1 pull-pull rudder servo. So that'll work pretty nice. I do have to figure out where I'm going to put the throttle servo on here. So we'll go ahead and we'll figure that part out later on once we start pulling it, flipping it over and start mounting everything in the aircraft. But needless to say, it's looking pretty good. I've already got my 3D printed pilot here, and he fits right up in here nicely. And of course, we're going to be doing the instrument panel again as well. That's going to fit right there nicely. And of course, the canopy still fits. I do have some final trimming that needs to be done on that when we get to that point. But yeah, it's looking pretty good, guys. So stay tuned. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and get the wings joined together because I want to get that portion done prior to covering the wing. So that way I can sand everything, put whatever filler needs to be in there, and make it all nice and smooth and make it one. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, because I'm going to have time constraints in regards to using the epoxy and so on. So I want to get that done, and we'll move on to the next step. So stay tuned, guys, and be right back. Hey, guys. Okay, welcome back, and we're still working on the Cap 232. I did some trial fitting on the engine. I also finished doing some fiberglassing over here, and I'll point the camera down to it. And we got the fiberglass done on the top and already on the bottom, on the center section of the wing, now that it is joined. Now I want to talk a little bit about how I went ahead and joined that wing, because originally what the design of that aircraft recommends is to have a, when one wing panel is sitting on the ground for the dihedral, the right, so I laid it down on the left side, on the left panel flat on the bench, And then I raised the right one up to the 3 inches that that the manufacturer actually recommended. Unfortunately, I don't think that this airplane needs that much dihedral. That is quite a bit of dihedral, 3 inches on the tip. So I lowered it down to 1 inch. However, it did end up leaving a little bit of a gap. There is a plywood plate that goes in between the wings as the joiner comes in, right? So you have the dihedral brace, and then you have the a plywood plate in between the 2 plywood plates that are on the wing panels themselves. So what I did is I ended up sanding that a little bit and making a fillet of plywood in between. And then I used the polyurethane Gorilla Glue, and with a little bit of water, it expands. And I had tape over it that filled that gap beautifully, and it creates a nice strong bond still. What ends up happening though is I ended up having to then fiberglass this as usual, and this is now fiberglassed, and now the wing will be nice and strong and bonded together. The top half right now, the fiberglass is still curing, so we'll set that off to the side. So anyway, so that's pretty much all we're going to get done today. I will take a look at some other things once my battery charges up for my camera again, and we'll take a look at some of the other parts that we got done today before we end this video. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back. All right, guys, so welcome back. I switched to my phone since my camera died on me, but I do want to just do a quick update on where we are on the wing. And this is pretty much going to be might be the last video for today, for this weekend, but definitely we'll see how everything works out, and see how much more time I can get on it tomorrow. But so the Cap 232 is now it's in a great state right now. Go ahead and turn the camera around for you and let you take a look and see where we are right now. Okay, so like I said, we got the engine trial fit here. I got there are 1.95 inches in regards to the spacers. They're the Evolution spacers. They work pretty good. They're threaded on both sides, kind of like a DLE setup. But this twin-cylinder 30cc should work great in there. It fits into the cowl. I do have some holes I got to trim out for the exhaust. I do have it backwards on there, so that way the exhaust comes out the bottom and the back, towards the back of that. The ignition module is going to end up going right up under here with the and the fuel tank. Probably going to end up putting it up on the top up here. I already fuel-proofed in there. I can see the coverings all peeled off. These are all hinged. They move nicely. Same with the rudder. No interference, so no binding. And same with this elevator. Okay, so those work good. Looking at the wing here, we do have these hinged using the Robart style point hinges. I'd only have 3 in right now, but there are provisions for a total of 5 on both ailerons. Also have the holes already made up for the control horns. The fiberglass is on here with epoxy resin. So that's going to be curing. It's a 30-minute epoxy thinned out with some denatured alcohol to make it easier to spread. And like I said, I took a little bit of dihedral out of the wing. I want an aerobatic airplane. I know the stability is decreased a little bit by taking out some of the dihedral, but this plane will be just fine for that. And like I said, I do a lot of crazy flying anyway, so should be fine. Servo holes are on the bottom side, and I'm probably going to add some string to go from the servo bay up to the holes, so that way later on, once it's covered, easily pull that cable right up through there and get to the receiver. But other than that, it looks pretty darn good. I'm pretty happy with how that's all coming out. Like I said, I'm really happy with that engine. Got a couple parts that I'm waiting on. I did 3D print another guy here for it. He's going to go right up inside there. And like I said, do have that instrument panel here as well. And we'll play around with that to clean it up to make it look good in there. Canopy is right over here. Wheel pants we're going to be sanding, priming, and getting those all ready to repaint in the white. We're going to be using this metallic blue here. That's this metallic blue is what we're going to be using for the top half of the airframe here. And then also the stab. So all this is going to be blue and going out onto the cowl. And then it's going to be white down on the bottom with a red stripe going along there and onto the cowl. The wing, we are going to be doing white leading edge. And then it's going to have the, I cut out the, grab over here and this stuff here, trying to show you. These are my templates that I made from the original plan or original design on the wing. Now I got the templates on there. This is just rough in regards to the placements, but give you a rough idea of how this is going to look. So the center section is going to have a should be the blue, or no, I'm sorry, it should be red right up here, following where my finger is there. And then you're going to have a white section. And then this template will be the blue, white, red, white, and then blue for number 3. So 3, again, 3 is blue, 2 is red, 1 is blue, and then red up against the fuselage. All right, and then on the fuselage, like I said, the top half here is going to be blue, and then white with a red stripe between the two. All right, guys, so welcome back. Just wanted to, it's the next day. It's a Sunday now. And yesterday we got quite a bit done on this, on the Hangar 9 Cap 232. So what we were working on previously in the video yesterday basically was getting the wing joined together and then fiberglass. So we have that now completed. I did want to do a mock-up to see how everything looks on the aircraft put together. So of course we do have the hinges, all the surfaces are now hinged. There's a few pieces I need to add to the elevator and the rudder, just to add a little bit more wood where the pin hinges go in. So we're going to work on that a little bit today, and maybe start doing a little bit of covering. So once we get those parts glued in, I should be able to get the elevator, the horizontal stabilizer, vertical stabilizer, and rudder covered today. The fuselage, I'm going to wait a little bit longer because we do still need to get everything kind of mounted in place. I need to sand open the opening where the horizontal stabilizer slides in. That part needs to be sanded out a little bit more to allow for the thickness of the covering, because it is a pretty tight fit as it is. Then there's a lot of work in this area for the cowl and getting the engine to fit in there nicely. But it's pretty damn close, actually. I like the 2.5-inch spinner that I have on here. Blends nicely with the top of the cowl. The engine's going to get plenty of coolant since the 2 cylinders come out right in front of these, or right behind the openings here of the for the cowl. So that all looks really good. The wing is going to need a little bit more sanding and maybe some filler in some spots, because I don't want to cover a bad wood like the manufacturer did. So we will fix that. But I already mocked up having the servos in. Those are all good for the wing. The fuselage side we need to work on a little bit in regards to the railing, and the rails that are in here, they're glued in place. I did reinforce all of the glue joints and then we also need to add some more wood to the tail section where the tail wheel is going to be mounted, because we're not using the rudder style tail wheel where the tail wheel assembly mounts right into the rudder. I'm not a big fan of that, so I don't really want to do that. So we're going to add some wood there and put blind nuts in before we get the covering done. Unfortunately, I don't have those parts yet. I'm waiting for them to come in. Hopefully they'll be in this week, but things have been getting a little bit slow because of the coronavirus issues going on right now in the world. So hopefully they get here within this next week so we can move forward and start buttoning up the covering on this airplane and getting the tail wheel and the control rods all mounted inside there prior to the covering, because it makes things a lot easier to be able to do it while it's open than it is to try to fish things through after it's been completed and covered. So, but without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and take this apart, put some parts in storage locations while we go ahead and start adding those extra balsa pieces to the tail feathers, control feathers back there, and we'll get that started. So stay tuned, guys. I hope you guys are enjoying the video and the build of this airplane, and we'll keep moving. So stay tuned. Okay, guys, so this is going to be the last video for the weekend here. We're going to be getting everything together and get that video posted. But anyways, got to do some editing in regards to what we've accomplished here. Now, I did start doing some covering, but I do know that you guys still want me to do a quick overview of how I actually do my covering, and that's not a problem. I'm going to do that. There's plenty still here to go ahead and cover. So throughout this, I will take a few minutes and go over what I do to cover the aircraft. But just to touch base on where we are right now on the aircraft, I have the wing almost mounted. As you can see, it is on the aircraft. Basically, I have the front pegs installed, the wooden dowels that allow the aircraft, the wing to slide in. I do still need to figure out how I'm going to do the back bolts here. They give you metal bolts, but I don't like metal bolts for holding on the wing. I like to use nylon. The reason for that is if someone bangs into it or some sort, anything like that, then at least they won't break the structure, and hopefully the nylon bolt would break first. So just that's my preference. Now the blind nuts that they put in here are metric, and I'm going to use 1/4-20. So I'm going to have to either source some new bolt or new blind nuts or T-nuts in here, or which is what I was thinking about doing, is going ahead and filling in these holes with a wooden dowel, and then going ahead and adding a bolt off to the side of it, and then thread it and call it done. But we'll see how that goes. Now you can start to see here that I did start the cover in here. We have the checkers on the rudder and then the blue stab. This metallic blue is going to continue on the top of the fuselage with the checkers here on the and the checkers here on the rudder. The bottom of the wing is also going to be these checkers as well. And then we're going to start working on figuring out the design on the wing, which I mentioned in this video. I already went ahead and made up my templates for that. So, but all the control horns, control linkages, I still need to get done. The wing is now is pretty much ready to start covering. Already mocked up everything in regards to the linkages for the ailerons, so that's all set. They're already hinged as well, so that's good too. Yeah, so pretty much that's all we're going to have done for today. I'm going to call it quits for the weekend. So I hope everybody is staying safe, and that your families are safe and staying healthy. And I'll see you on the next video. So keep building, keep flying. Don't forget, hit that like button. Should be in this corner over here. And go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys on the next video, guys. Keep building, keep flying. Bye, guys.